Today on For the Record.
This is a helpful hand that we are reaching out for those folks who we know are struggling, sometimes in very real ways out in public, but sometimes behind closed doors in their homes.
They call themselves the fourth branch of emergency services, the Alternative Response Team.
In the city of Bridges, we bridge that gap between that crisis and that individual to the services that are available.
Now, a look at the help they provide and the difference they're making in some Allegheny County communities.
If there's a crisis, a mental health crisis, an older adult who might be in crisis or an overdose, you want to make sure that you've got a behavioral health responder.
For the Record starts right now. Welcome to For the Record. I'm Janelle Hall. Today we learn more about the Alternative Response Team here in Allegheny County. They call themselves the fourth branch of emergency response, addressing mental health crises and other human service-related emergencies in three primary ways: as an alternative to law enforcement, in tandem with law enforcement, and following a law enforcement interaction. They currently operate in Monroeville, Penn Hills, McKees Rocks, and with the Allegheny County Housing Authority. And I'll also share later this half hour how they're open to expanding to other communities. But let's start with my conversation with Erin Dalton, the director of Allegheny County's Department of Human Services, and John Chilinsky, the director of the A-Team. Let's talk about the A-Team, the Alternative Response Program. What is it and what communities do you serve?
Yeah, the Alternative Response Team is really an opportunity for us to send the right responders at the right time, right? If there's a robbery at your house, you really want the police to come. Yeah. But if there's a crisis, a mental health crisis, an older adult who might be in crisis or an overdose, you want to make sure that you've got a behavioral health responder. And so that's what the A-Team was really designed to do, to support our partners in law enforcement and also community members who really want that behavioral health first responder. And we're working in a number of communities. So far, we've been just so pleased that our partners have come along. So Monroeville, Penn Hills, McKees Rocks, and then working closely with the County Housing Authority to implement in their jurisdiction as well.
Let's talk about how this program helps emergency responders.
Yeah, so I think our partners would say they are not always the right and best people to respond. And there's so much other crime and violence in our communities, and we want to make sure that our law enforcement partners have the opportunity to focus on those really serious issues that certainly behavioral health responders can't. It is up to them. The way it works is if somebody calls 911 in these municipalities where we're working, they contact law enforcement, right? And law enforcement can say, oh, this is looks like it might be a mental health crisis or, an overdose, something with a family. We'd love to send the A-Team, or we'd love the A-Team to come with us. And so then they have the right expertise with them, or they can just send that right expertise the first time, and they could go on and take another call, something that really requires their attention. So
in what other areas of our community does that also help by having the A-Team present versus the police all the time?
Yeah, I think it helps to make sure that police can also respond quickly to those really serious issues, right? If there is a robbery in progress, if there is something more serious going on in the community, that means they can go there. And then I think behavioral health type situations, we've seen this locally, we've seen this, with domestic violence, we've seen it nationally. Those are really dangerous situations for law enforcement. Often people can be triggered by law enforcement coming to their door at that time when they're in really deep crisis. And so it also, I think, protects everyone, the person who might be in crisis or really need the kind of behavioral health help, protects our officers who might not be the right people to come to the scene at that time. And yes, it allows our community to be protected because police are able to go to those more serious incidents where the police are really the ones who need to be there.
Let's talk about your role in this program and how you have seen it being implemented, the good, the bad, and anything that you're learning in between.
Yeah, absolutely. So in implementing any program, there's always some struggles, and,
Yeah.
and usually it's just scheduling with other people. But it was a process of getting all the partners on board, having some really in-depth conversations with the different law enforcement agencies, with different public providers like school districts and other mental health providers as well, so that we could partner. So that was a bit of a struggle, but it's ongoing. And as we grow and as we continue in this service, I'm constantly making connections with other providers so that we can get the people that we interact with the proper care and the help that they need on a long-term basis.
If someone says to you, I've never heard of the A-Team, what do you do? What would you say?
We help those in need in an emergency response type way. We are the fourth branch of emergency services. And you don't call us to put out a fire, but we will be there to help with the person that needs it, regardless of what that might look like. It's not always the generic mental or behavioral health situation that we might think of when we hear those terms, but it might be any social or human service need that somebody might benefit from our services, or connecting them to the right people to help them long term.
Still ahead on For the Record.
The law enforcement officers showed up. They realized that this is more than just a trespassing, a criminal case. This is somebody that needs help in finding home.
More stories of the help the A-Team provides and how they see themselves growing in the future. Welcome back to For the Record. Let's continue my conversation now about the Alternative Response Team, a group of trained behavioral health first responders that can help assist in certain emergency situations. Take a look. Can you give us some examples of situations that you have responded to or would respond to, and also the reaction from the police department knowing that you all are there to assist them in a different way?
Oh, absolutely. So the law enforcement agencies we work with, the police officers that we interact with on a daily basis are very welcoming and very just appreciative of our services. I visit the departments on a regular basis and talk with the officers, and they often tell us how happy they are to have us around. One of the instances we intervened with was at a hotel, and the individual was being charged with trespassing because they were there for a long period of time and they couldn't pay their bill. So when the law enforcement officers showed up, they realized that this is more than just a trespassing, a criminal case. This is somebody that needs help in finding home to live in or housing. And so they called us. And so we were able to get there, talk with that individual, try to connect them with the proper resources, transport them to a short-term shelter for the evening, but then also follow up with them later in time to really get them connected to long-term housing. We've responded to individuals that sometimes in the community, other community members just don't know what's going on. And so they're a little heightened or scared of that situation. But in all reality, it was somebody that was struggling. And so we go and talk with them and try to help bring them down, de-escalate them, so that we can get them, again, the help that they need in that moment and make others in the community feel safe and secure.
Aaron was talking about situations where it seems like the A-Team may be more welcomed than law enforcement. Can you think of examples like that and why you think that is the case?
Yeah, so there's been a couple instances where people call and ask for us when they call 911 after they've interacted with us in the field already. And so they see us as community members. We look like just an average worker with a polo with our logo on it, and we come at it with the approach is how can we help you in your need in this moment. Not that police don't do that. They do that all the time. They ask for the help. They try to get that person the help they need, but they're looking from a different angle. They have certain trainings, well, we have other trainings, and we try to collaborate together on those scenes, and sometimes that's just what people need. You know, I mentioned fire before, but if there's no fire and a firefighter shows up at the scene, they probably won't be happy that they're there. So they making sure we have that right response for the right moment.
Let's talk about some of the training and educational background that you have that might be different or even the same in some cases as police, but the different things that are all brought to the table when the A-team responds.
Yes, we have a very diverse crew on the A-team. We have about 30 employees right now, half of which have bachelor's level education, the other half about master's level. And they go through not only rigorous training, about 4 weeks at the program level to prepare them for intervening in the community, but they also come with their own experiences. We have individuals that have worked in school systems, that have worked in mental behavioral health, worked with those with intellectual disabilities, you name it, drug and alcohol. My team has worked in various capacities and with people of all ages. So some individuals work better with kids and some with older adults, young adults, you name it. But our team is so diverse that we can support each other when we're in the field and being able to address the needs of that individual there. But as a program, we go through trainings for verbal de-escalation, background trainings in all the different capacities or areas that we might serve in the community, and individuals that are going through troubling circumstances. So we try to prepare ourselves going into that with both like online but in-person training as well, especially the trainings to make sure everybody is safe on those scenes.
We talked about some of the dangers that any first responder faces on the scene. Are you scared going into certain situations? Is there concern if maybe police aren't with you? And how do you feel like you're able to protect yourself if you're in a situation when maybe law enforcement isn't there with you?
Well, when going into any crisis situation, there's always a level of nervousness or anxiety because of the unknowns. But what we try to do is get as much known as we can. So part of our process, on top of training individuals going into these circumstances, is when we're on the way to these 911 calls, we call the person that called 911 to try to gather more information that might be more pertinent to us so that we know how to approach a scene, but also to determine if anything was missed previously, if it's safe for us to be there. If there's any indication of any safety concern, not just from the call, but when we approach the scene, we will call our partners and make sure that they're there with us or instead of us.
That's good, and it's a way to establish a relationship too with that person before you get on the scene. What does the future hold, do you think, for this program? Do you plan to expand? Is there talk with other police departments? And you mentioned schools. Are there any schools that you're currently working with as well?
Yeah, I think, as John said, we see this as the fourth branch of emergency response, and it's something that should be available to all communities across the county. You might know this, I'm not sure, that there's over 100 police departments in Allegheny County, and in that kind of a system, we kind of have to work one by one, right? 911 is not going to dispatch the A-team if local law enforcement is not on board with that type of response. And so it does require us working kind of municipality to municipality. But even early days, people are seeing the kind of responses that are happening in community and asking for this. And so it's our goal at the Department of Human Services. That's part of the work that we need to do is just working with those other departments and bringing more law enforcement on. I think the chiefs that are already on board are really great spokespeople for the work. I think they can see how this is helping not only their community but their officers, and so they're some of our biggest champions, and I think can help us to expand. That
word of mouth. Can you talk a little bit too? In some of the research I was doing, it talks about how it can help with emergency rooms as well, and police response times to other more serious cases in some instances.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that John said is important. We can help to transport to places where people need to be. So again, that police don't have to do that, and they have more opportunity to do longer term follow-on, right? So that person that was in the hotel who might need links to housing services, no matter the best police officer is not going to have time to the next day check in and make sure they get into housing services. The A team can do that, and they can connect to the rest of the human services system, to make those longer term connections. And that's really what's going to make it such that that person's not there the next day. They in fact get the help that they need and can move along. So I think that helps also just make sure that people are, if they have to come to the emergency department, are coming, it's the right people sort of coming there with the right, in the right place.
Anything you wanted to say about that?
Absolutely, and Erin's spot on with that, because you can get tied up in the hospitals or other providers for a lot of time. We want to make sure that we alleviate the law enforcement agencies to be able to respond to the proper calls, and we have done that. We have partnerships with some of the hospitals to where we transport, and we have a nice, easy process so that we can also respond to a call as soon as we can. And we've transported people many different places to help them in that immediate need when we intervene with them.
And you think about the wait times at some
Oh, yeah.
hospitals, that could be an entire shift for someone in law enforcement. I know we talked about this term, but can you describe what it means when you say that we are the fourth branch of emergency services? I'll start with you, John.
Yes, so across the nation, this has been something that's been happening for many years, where when we said earlier we want the right response for the right situation. You have fire to put out a fire, the police to handle those criminal cases, you have EMS for medical emergencies. Well, as the A team, an alternative response, we respond to those that are mental and behavioral health, social service needs in the community that those other agencies might not be equipped to handle in that moment. And so we are responding to these calls. We're on scene in a very quick time frame, less than 30 minutes, depending on where the call is in our areas. When we get that call, we're out of the door or hitting the road in less than 4 minutes. So we're able to respond quickly, like some of these emergency services that are already performing, but we collaborate with them so that we can partner and provide that support for anyone in the emergency service departments that might need it.
Still ahead, what the group behind the A team had to say when I asked about their overall goal. Welcome back to For the Record. Let's go back to my conversation about the alternative response team as we ask more about their overall goal. You talk about de-escalating things, the fear that this could get worse if they maybe feel like they're in trouble, but they're really facing a mental health crisis. What's the overall goal that you see for the program, and why do you think it's so beneficial for these communities?
Yeah, no, I think it's part of a range of services. So, people who are in behavioral health crisis can call 988. Yeah. So, your viewers should know about 988. This is the place that they can call to get that kind of behavioral health support. And 988 here in Allegheny County does do on-site response too, right? So, but the response times are quite a bit longer at this point than the A team. But regardless, not everyone's going to call 988. They're going to call 911 sometimes, whether it's that hotel owner or property manager or people themselves. Not everyone's going to know about that resource, and so it is a specialty. Right? We don't expect John to put out fires. We don't expect emergency room docs to have all the full training in behavioral health supports or know how to get people into housing services. And so, just making sure, as we keep sort of saying, the right responder for the right incident, whether people call 988 and get us, similar kind of trained people, or they call 911. We want to send the right folks there. And I think, just more broadly is part of a trend to think about human services being available in more of a 24/7 way. People don't need, some people need help in the 9 to 5, and you can have appointments and have regular care during that kind of a schedule. But that's not when crises happen. Whether it's, your kid with an ear infection, it's never 9 to 5, it's always 11 p.m. Or, a crisis, another kind of crisis. That's, those are things that we have to be able to respond to all around the clock.
And our viewers are in a variety of counties across Western PA. I know we're primarily talking about Allegheny County. Have you been working with leaders in other counties that they turn to you to ask about the program, to try to learn more if they see maybe some of the successes that you've had?
I don't know if we've had actually any contiguous counties reach out. We are certainly working with partners around the country and thinking this through. But I'm certainly open to talking to other county leaders or local law enforcement. It is about proximity, right? And so you could imagine teams on the corners of our county supporting multiple counties, right? Because, Tarentum is pretty far from McKees Rocks or the Mon Valley. And so you could imagine it working in that kind of a geographic way. And that kind of scale is what you need to make it, sort of work. And so while I'm not sure we have had that outreach, we're happy to talk with partners in contiguous counties too.
Coming up, a final thought on the A-Team and the help they provide the community. Welcome back. So what happens after the A-Team helps a person in crisis? The director of the team shared this final thought about what happens next.
We will follow up with them within 24 to 48 hours, depending on the severity of what is happening in that moment. And we will try to connect them to those long-term services. So our follow-up team is trying to meet with them, doing outreach with other providers, with that individual, meeting them on a weekly basis. And they follow them for about 90 days to try and connect them to something that will support them long-term. It's what I call is, in the city of bridges, we bridge that gap between that crisis and that individual to the services that are available. Because navigating all of what is available in our communities is really difficult because there's a lot. There's a lot of specialized services out there that people just don't know about. So we want to make sure that they have that awareness and they're able to connect to them.
And we have more information about the A-Team right now on our website, WTAE.com, and also the WTAE app. Just click the link to this show, which is right off of our main page. That's all for this week's edition of For the Record. Thanks so much for watching this morning. We'll see you next Sunday morning at 11:30. Have a great week.